Yeah, hello there, everyone. How you doing today? I hope you're all well. Today we're going to be reading some r/entitled parents. Please join me in my ever-shrinking pool of sanity while we read some parents who are complete dicks and three halves. I hope you enjoy. Please like and subscribe, and without further ado, let's go. Entitled Abusive brother-in-law wants to drop his daughter at my home whenever he feels like it. Husband blames me for not allowing it. I, Shannon, not the real name, 33 female, have been married to my husband Tony, not the real name, 34 male, for 13 years. We have a daughter, Janelle, once again not the real name, 12 female. It has been a very rocky 13 years because of Tony, his brother, Miles, 31 male, and family. Let me give you a little backstory. In 2020, Miles is diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder, and the family has done nothing but enable it. He started arguing with Janelle while she was talking to his mother, her grandmother. I came out of the room because I heard it in the hallway, and he was literally facing down. He's a 6'2" man. A 10-year-old girl threatening to put his hands on her because she talked back to him. I stood between him and told him he's not going to put his hands on anyone. His mother tried to quiet him and get him out of the house while Tony is sitting outside on the porch listening to everything that's happening. I asked Tony why he didn't do anything, and he said his mother had it under control. I was seething and couldn't believe it. A month later, Miles comes with his daughter Jessica, now 6. I'm in the shower and I hear him arguing with my daughter saying, "I'ma put my hands on you. Your father and mother can't do anything about it." I immediately came out of the shower, but he was gone and Jessica was there. I told Janelle to put her clothes on when we were leaving the house. I called my husband and told him we're leaving and Jessica is in the house. Miles returns and sees us waiting outside for an Uber, and he starts berating us to the top of his lungs, calling us all kinds of names. We quickly went into the Uber when it came. It came up to the Uber and punched the window on my side I was sitting on, telling us to go. I called the police when I arrived at my parents' place. They take my statement, give me a report, then leave. I heard he was harassing people in the streets after we left, berating them the same way. I told my husband that Miles needs to be taken to the hospital, or else he will end up in jail or worse. He told his parents and they did nothing. Instead, they had him where they were working, watching him. He saw my husband come by. Miles then slipped away from them and came to the house. After things escalated drastically, the police was called and he was taken to jail. It is now 2022. I have not seen any of them, Miles and family, since that incident. My husband's birth family has been trying to get us to be around them when we'd rather swallow hot coals. Mother's Day, he asked my husband if he can bring Jessica to see Janelle out of the blue. I almost choked because of the absolute audacity and said no. Told my husband that no one has apologized or atoned for anything, including him. Jessica told me in 2020 that her father, etc., told her not to trust me and I don't love her. It hurt her because she said she told them that I do love her. I've had her since she was a baby on and off. How could I not? I also told him that in the future, his mother can bring her by when we're ready. A week later, when I went to a store 2 blocks away, Janelle's grandfather brings Jessica and Miles over. Her grandpa usually knocks at the door, and she goes out to greet him. But this time, Miles and Jessica were at the door. She had a panic attack while Miles apologized for his past behavior and tried to give her a hug. Janelle said she was sick and backed up. Jessica, however, came in and spoke for a few minutes with her. My daughter called me immediately after in a panic, telling me what happened. The way my heart dropped into my toes and rolled around. It took me less than 5 minutes to be back home. Once again, I called my husband and told him what happened. Then had him put an extra bolt on the door. Today, my husband calls me up and asks if Jessica can stay for a few hours. I said no, you have to give me a bigger heads up. She can come by next Saturday. About half an hour later, Janelle and I hear a knock on the door. I check by the window and see Jessica and her father. Now, I'm confused because I definitely said next Saturday. Plus, I don't want Miles here for obvious reasons. They leave after a while, then my husband comes down while I'm once again in the shower. I hear a little voice after I turn the water off, and who's in the kitchen? Jessica! I told her, "Hi, baby. You can come next Saturday. We're going to have a fun day." All while Tony was ushering her out the door. I asked Janelle how she got in here, and she said Tony brought her inside. While my husband was leaving, I told him to make sure the doors are locked because I don't want anyone coming in here. He said nobody's trying to come in here, and I mentioned his brother knocking at the door. Clearly, he had no idea, and then said his brother was leaving Jessica with him. Impossible, because he was at work. He's staring at me intensely and asked if there was a problem. And then he starts shouting at me, saying I'm being stupid because I don't want Jessica to come over, that I'm holding on to the past. He's making it seem as if I just don't want her to come over. I want to keep her away from Janelle. I tell him to get out of my face and go. He continues to shout, and then proceeds to bump his chest into mine, still naked and fresh out of the shower, by the way. I tell him to stop before I call my brother. He tells me to call him, knowing he'll do absolutely nothing if my brother were to show up, and continues harassing me. I told him if he touches me again, I'm going to call the police. He said, call them for what, then proceeds to poke me passive-aggressively, trying to egg me into retaliating. I continue to tell him to leave. He has to go back to work, and then he finally leaves. My mother thinks I should drop it and let Jessica come over whenever, when I know they just want a free babysitter. Plus, I don't want to deal with these issues anymore. TLDR, entitled husband and his family's mad at me for not allowing my abusive brother-in-law, who has schizoaffective disorder, and threatened to hit my daughter more than once, and is being enabled by the family to drop off his daughter that I've had on and off since she was a baby, but haven't seen in 2 years. My husband called me stupid today, screamed at me until he chest bumped me, saying I'm keeping her from our daughter, while holding on to the past. And there's an update. Janelle and I have taken some of our things and are currently staying with a friend. We live in New York. We left after he went to work today. I'm open to options and looking into the best next steps from here. My daughter is very intelligent. She knows that what his family is doing is wrong and is very outspoken when it comes to them, which they don't like. Thank you so much for your responses. I'm overwhelmed in the best way. Thank you for validating that I wasn't overreacting and actually abused on many levels I didn't consider, especially from my husband. My mother, the sociopath. I'm just posting this only to get it off my chest, to be honest. I, 28 male, basically stopped talking to my mom for good fairly recently. I was diagnosed with ADHD and ASD when I was real little, and throughout the childhood and into my teenage years, she treated me as if I was some kind of invalid. My father wasn't exactly the beacon of human decency himself, but at least he's changed, and accepts the fact that he screwed up a lot and he has owned it. They divorced when I was 9, after my mother essentially kidnapped me and my siblings, now 30F and 22 male, and lied to my father where we were going. When I was 15, she tried the same stuff again, except it was an attempt to move us out of state and cut contact with him completely. My mother will never admit to the wrongdoing without saying, "I'm sorry you feel that way," or "there's 2 sides to every story." Typical narcissist crap. My younger brother is AFAB, but began his transition in high school, and my mother had to make it about herself, saying shit like, "I can't buy you a prom or wedding dress anymore." And this is important. A little under 2 months ago, Me and my brother treated our younger cousin to an arcade and dinner after she graduated high school. For the most part, we're pretty close with this cousin, but due to the rest of our family being absolutely insane, religious fundamentalism, as well as gaslighting and mental and emotional abuse from my older sister, we don't get to see this cousin so often. She spilled that my mother was telling the entire family that my brother is acting as a naughty worker to make money and his transition was part of it. We were both furious at this revelation, but didn't act on it right away. I let a few days go by before angrily sending a text to my mother saying she needs to stop doing that immediately. And her only response was, "Glad to know you're alive." She hadn't made any sort of real effort to speak to me in several months up to this point, and her only form of contacting me was talking to me with 2 separate TikTok accounts. Even if I were to call her up right now and tell her how ridiculous and heinous her behavior is, she would still deflect everything away and pretend like she never did anything wrong in her life. So, yeah, Mother of the Year, everyone. New neighbor is a religious nutjob psycho Karen. So this story starts with OP downsizing their home and moving somewhere else in a way that they wrote it in a way I can't read for some reason. And last night is when they had their first unfortunate introduction to the new neighbor. My girl and the crew had finished setting up the new place, and with any move that the crew helps with, I supplied the obligatory pizza and beer. Ooh, pizza. We weren't being loud. I wouldn't even call it a dull roar or just some old friends chillin'. We have moved way past the rowdiness of our youth. We're all just chillin' when the front door to our house swings right open and out marches the star of the story, Mrs. Karen. Scraggly hair, old bathrobe, she fits the entire busybody stereotype. That woman marched herself over to the front porch, put her hands on her hips, didn't say a word, and just stared. I hadn't had the opportunity to introduce myself to any of the neighbors, and so I went out and talked to her. So that's what I did. I said, "Hey, I was planning on visiting you tomorrow to introduce myself, but now's a good time. I'm Mikey. Everyone calls me Rabbit. It's great to meet you." The new, normal speak for neighbors, right? The woman didn't say a damn thing, just stood there staring with that disapproving look you got from your parents when they caught you having self-fun for the first time. She finally broke that awkward silence to say, "And what do you think you're doing?" I replied, "We're just chilling, having a beer. You're more than welcome to come chill out with us." We were also smoking some weed, though. That woman almost exploded, screaming, "What you're doing is wrong and disgusting, illegal, immoral, and doing the wrong meh, and finger wag of shame on top of that. My buddy CJ, I spoke about him before, an ex-bouncer turned dentist. He's a huge guy, 6'8", with tree trunks for arms, and said, "Hey, Karen, we're not being loud. We're just chilling, so kindly fuck off." She flipped out screaming, "You degenerates! You can't do this! I have kids! I won't allow you perverts to corrupt them!" and marched back to her house. The other members of the crew said, "Bye, Karen." So yeah, CJ, being CJ, said, "Hey, Karen, you forgot the garlic necklace." She once again screamed, "Degenerates! I'm calling the police!" Another friend of mine, Jack, we call him Frost for obvious reasons, said, "We should get the stereo out." We had it all set up, and Karen came back with a phone as she stood on our porch. Well, Frost put some of our favorite songs from back in the day. "Who let the dogs out? Who, who, who?" She actually did call the cops. We chatted for a minute, and they agreed we weren't doing anything wrong. We were well within the noise limit and left without much trouble. Karen stood on her porch watching us with a look of contempt. Frost said, "Hey, I know we'll get rid of her." Frost pressed a few buttons on his phone and guess what starts playing? He's so horny. Or whatever that song is. And yeah, Karen went in with a face that was beet red. She called the cops and they showed back up. We all had a laugh and explained that this is the normal and they know about that crazy bee. I had the chance to talk to all the other neighbors and they thought it was funny as heck. So yeah, she's known in the neighborhood as being a bit of a word I'm not going to say on YouTube, lest I get banned. And I'm having most of the street over this weekend for a barbecue. And more choice music. I hope you enjoyed. Please like and subscribe, it helps the channel a lot. See you next time.